Alrighty, I'm going to be a little selfish, but hopefully by admitting I'm being selfish, you will stick around because it will be good for you as well. Let's welcome Coach Carson to the show. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I actually want to pick your brain a little bit. I want to get some advice, coaching, mentorship, help, however you want to categorize it directly from you. And I really want to go through two topics. The first one is I want to talk about your YouTube channel. Your YouTube channel is over 100,000. You've got the silver play button. I'd love to hear from you. What were the keys to the journey? Because there were probably ebbs and flows from day one to earning that silver play button. This is something that I've been going after for 5+ years now, and I'm halfway there, maybe 60% there, but sometimes you get discouraged. So make me feel better. Give me some advice. Help me out.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is what you preach, and I think what you do, honestly, is just doing the work. When I think back at today's end of 2024, I've had the channel for a long time. Like I started uploading in 2010 or 11 with a few little random things, and 2014 I put a few more random things, but like I really committed to the channel in 2019. That's when I actually started, publishing fairly regularly. I think I got at least once a month, but probably every week at that point. And so I think that's for if you're early in your journey. I mean, you're doing this, this, but you've got to put in the work, the skill to get the skills, because it's very painful for me to watch my early videos. I'm sure as it always is.
It always is, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even some of the ones that have done well, I'm like, God, it took 5 minutes to get into the point. Get to the point, Chad. Get to the point. It's just so frustrating to watch. But I've always heard people say, whatever you're doing, that's a good thing. Like if you can watch yourself 5 years ago and it's painful to watch it, that means you've gotten a lot better. And so for me, I think that's like number one is you just got to put in the reps. Like when I used to play football, you just had to put in the reps. You had to put in the reps it got so monotonous sometimes when we do our linebacker drills, like the same thing over and over and over again. But the people who are really good at a skill like football or YouTubing, they love the detail. They love the grind. They love the craft of it. That's the way I describe it. So I think when you put in your reps, you do the work like you always say, then you have to, you focus on the craft and get better at it. And so that's first and foremost. I mean, that's one thing I try to focus on. But then, at some point that's not enough. I think that you put in the work and you do the craft, and you could just kind of hit a plateau, which we all do. And so the other thing I do, I try to, walk my talk is I get coaching. And so I got hired a coach a couple years ago, a guy named Tim Schmoyer. He had a website called Video Creators, and he's actually got bought out by vidIQ, and so he does some work with them now. But that was super helpful. Like it was not cheap. I had to pay a bunch of money, but I got really granular feedback on my channel, and I'll give you a couple examples on things they were looking at. They would look at videos I'd done and say, all right, this is some good ones you did. Here's some ones that didn't do so well, and we would try to pick apart some of the craft of why each one of these did well or didn't do well. And so we started focusing on things like the thumbnails, for example, which in YouTube is a really big deal. Also the hook, like the first 15 to 30 seconds, which anybody who does YouTube a little while, you realize like you just got to jump right into it. But like not just knowing that that's important, but actually like practicing doing those things better. And so that's what I love about coaching. Like I go back to sports a lot, but when I played football, you would conceptually know you're supposed to get low, you're supposed to get off the block like this, but then you would watch film, and my coach would rewind it over and over, like, Carson, why'd you do that? And you would watch like the first step you took, just some little minute detail. And I did the same thing with YouTube coaching. I was like, all right, here's this one little pause you made for 2 seconds. It kind of lost me. Like, why'd you do that in the hook? And so I think if you combine those things, the willingness to just like get in the weeds, practice, put in a lot of hours into the work, and then being humble enough to be a beginner over and over and over again and get feedback, which you're doing today, which I totally appreciate that you do this. I try to do the same thing. When you get coaching and feedback, then you can add that to your work and try to improve that and kind of improve your technique. And those, I'm sure there's other things I've done, but those are two of the things specifically with YouTube. I invested the time, I invested money in getting consulting and help, and then put that on repeat over and over again.
Yeah. So let me kind of summarize that and then like personal self-reflection, right? So again, you've had a channel for a long time, but really didn't take it serious to 2019. You got on a repeatable publishing that you were comfortable with, whether it was monthly or weekly. Um, Now, were you doing all the, content ideas, the scripting, the editing, in 2019, or was some of that quote unquote outsourced?
I've always outsourced my editing. So
Okay.
that is one thing. So I had my business model with Coach Carson was I had a blog first and foremost. That was my original. I
Mm,
wrote a bunch of articles. I would get Google, would give me search traffic, and I would show up on podcasts here and there. And then, but the blog was my thing,
okay.
coachcarson.com. And then I had my newsletter, email newsletter, which I still have. But I wasn't doing YouTube as a serious thing. And I didn't even do a podcast until 2019 either. And so the podcast, the blog, then the podcast, and then YouTube was just sort of dabbling. And then I started
Mm,
doing that. The podcast and YouTube are two separate things for a while. I've sort of combined those now where I publish a YouTube centric podcast. That's kind of the way I think about it.
got it.
So the way where I publish audio as well, but I'm actually, this is a side. I'm starting to dabble with a little bit of audio only podcasts again, where I just do something super informal, which I've learned from
Mm,
you too. Like, I think the more off the cuff and conversational it is, that there's a place for that too. Whereas a lot of my videos are very, very edited, very,
mm,
I script the first minute, the hook, just to make sure I get that right. I script the last part of it. There's a lot of impromptu stuff in between, but I did have an editor from the very beginning. It's a long story short. Like, I paid, who's a student of mine, and he happened to do videos, and so I paid him to edit the podcast. I paid him to edit the videos, and that's been an investment. I guess that's something I
mm.
didn't mention earlier. I've spent a lot of money. These days, I probably spend $7,000 to $10,000 a month on content editing and producing. So it's
All right.
no small feat, no small amount.
Yeah. So 7 to 10 grand. So that's to edit the videos, publish, thumbnails.
Correct.
They're doing all of it now, or I'm guessing you're not doing the thumbnails.
I'm not doing the thumbnails, although I'm creatively involved in everything. So
Okay.
the way I think about it is like I'm kind of the center of that creative wheel, but
Mhm.
it's a creative team, and so more and more I'm learning to hand off little things like the thumbnails. I don't know how to do any kind of editing of software to do any of that stuff. I mean, I could play it. It would be horrible.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
I'm not a good editor of videos, although I could, dabble in it. But I do have good taste. I think I've learned because I was doing the work of what a good finished product is. I'm like, this thumbnail doesn't get this as much. So like, I study thumbnails, I study editing, I study the craft. But I have team members who help me execute some of that stuff, and I think that's really important because to me, like, another lesson I've learned about YouTube is that one of the picking topics and the ideation stage and really just understanding your customer. This is something I heard in one of your interviews. Who's your kind of your YouTube mentor from Think Media?
Omar and Sean Cannell.
Sean Cannell. Sean Cannell said this that really stuck with me. He said, I want to be the YouTuber who understands my audience better than anybody else.
Hmm.
And that really struck me. I was like, okay, being a good editor is important, doing all this other stuff, but I want to be the one who understands my audience better than anybody else. And so I've taken that seriously. Every day I have a list. I'm just studying, like, here's when I do a coaching call, here's a problem I hadn't heard before. Here's a nuance on a problem I haven't, and I just collect ideas and challenges and things people are struggling with. And so that's my job as the creative, at the center of the creative wheel, is like, what are some ideas, some concepts, just brainstorm a bunch of ideas. And then together as a creative team, we then say, how can we execute that? What would the title, here's the concept that I think would be good. How can we make a title that would work with that? How do we do a thumbnail? How can we frame this? Can we make a video out of this? And there's a bunch of them that you're on this, you scrap them, out of every 10 ideas you have, 1 or 2 work. But that's kind of that's a lot of fun for me, the creative process of taking an idea, kind of forming it like clay, and then the finished product we see. That's why YouTube's so much more work for me, at least, is that there's a lot of pre-work that goes into a video that I make, as opposed to like this kind of just knocking it out.
So the other thing I'm interested about is maybe you don't do it today, but and maybe you do. I don't know. But anytime during your journey, let's call it 2019 and on. So we'll take out the early part. Did you ever kind of run game film on other content creators that were ahead of you or bigger? right? Look at how they did their thing. Like, were you ever getting inspiration or like learning skills by watching game film on other creators?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I like just, I've become a YouTube fan, just watching other videos, watching other people. And one of the things I've taken to heart is not just watching your niche. Like I watch your channel, I'm subscribed, I pay attention, but I think it's a mistake to only watch real estate creators, because then we're just being a copycat, and there is some novelty. Like some of my best videos, I got ideas from other channels. Like I would do there's a trick where you look at somebody else's channel in your niche, you sort by the most popular, you look at their 10, 15 most popular videos. And then for me, I would just pick, I could do that one. Like I have a really good take on that one and it happens to be popular. Cool. Or here's a trending topic, and then kind of hijack the trend and to say, I could do something good on that trend. That's good too. But creatively, what I think's cool is like watching other creators at a totally different space. Like I really enjoy the maker space. Like my daughter is a kind of engineer type. She likes to make stuff, both of them. And so we'll watch Colin, what's his name? This guy from England. I'm drawing blanks on names today. But there's this maker Christmas special, and Colin Furs. Colin Furs is his name. He does a bunch of welding. He plays like hard rock music, and he's a totally eccentric guy. He's been digging like these trenches and like these little bunkers in his backyard in England somewhere. This is this regular little neighborhood, and he's just like digging these crazy trenches. I was like, what is going on here?
Doing?
I mean, he's spending like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's fascinating. So like I watch that, I pay attention, and I don't know how that applies to some of my content's more educational. That's more entertainment, but there is like the way they use the camera, the way they frame things. There's little things that I like to try to absorb from there. And I think some of those just come subconsciously. You start thinking about it. But I like to pay attention to that. I also just like to read a lot and listen to podcasts a lot. And I'm just a sponge for information and conversations. And so like I've been reading a lot of biographies lately. I just find that to be really inspiring. Just Abraham Lincoln was one I've read several about Abraham Lincoln, but I just find like good prose, good language, good communicators, good storytellers. That's really what you and I are doing. We are storytellers, and Abraham Lincoln had nothing to do with real estate investing, but if you can kind of channel some of the and take from that sphere and put it in your sphere, that's really interesting. It's novel. If you could take a story or an idea that came from the past and history, you can steal that. You can take that idea and totally deploy it in a different way and frame it. And that to me is one of the most fun things about what we do, Michael, is that it's a storytelling communication channel. And our job is to take information that might be dry or complicated or difficult for somebody else and frame it in a way and tell a story in a way that makes it interesting and understandable. And that's at its essence is what I really love about what we do.
Yeah. And the other thing that I know, but again, I want to get it here on video is you're not done investing. You're not done in getting around new events. You're not done paying for things. Like the last couple of years we've been talking, you went to a couple of, YouTube events, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not specifically YouTube, but you're still paying to get in rooms, even though most would call you wildly successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. I went to Vid Summit this year, which was I felt like the rookie in the room. There's all these huge YouTubers but I made some good connections there. I actually made friends with Rob Abasolo who's the Bigger Pockets co-host, former Bigger Pockets co-host. And like, if nothing else happened, but I didn't connect with him and become better friends with him, we've now done some collaborations on our YouTube channels, and we both benefited from that. And I'm just always picking his brain, just like I pick your brain and say, how would you do this? So I think those like events, coaching, I've from the very beginning, 21 years ago when I started real estate investing, I've always invested in my education and my relationships. Sometimes it's real money where you actually pay it. Other times is you have to just take the time to be in the same room with people. And it's just kind of raising your standards. Like if you want to be a champion football player, like you got to go somewhere where people play really good football. Or if you want to be a really good YouTuber, you got to hang out with people who make you feel like a little bit inadequate. You're like, oh crap, like Zuber's really doing this really well. Like I need to up my game a little bit. And I love that. Like I love to me, it's even making money is more to me about the competitive drive of the game. Like how can I get better? How can I improve? And so, yeah, that's in the world of YouTube, which I'm really focusing a lot on right now. I'm totally in student mode and learning mode.
So the last thing we'll talk about this before we get to topic number 2 is broadly speaking, can you break down how you spend $7,000 a month? Is it virtual assistants? Is it technology? Is it software? Where does that 7K kind of go?
Yeah, mainly human resources. So that
Okay, so
I,
people.
I would say like on a very highly produced video, that might be $1,000 for a video,
Okay.
$1,200.
Okay.
On a very some of the little on the other extreme, like very low produced, might be $100, $120 or so. So it just depends, on how. But the other thing that my editor and I have a content producer. So he used to be my editor. Now he's got a team of editors. He's doing a lot of the scripting and research. For example, we do these kind of trailer scripts on the beginning of our YouTube videos where we have like it's almost like a trailer to a movie, but we just it's the hook, and it's the how do I tell people about what's in the video. We're just experimenting with different formats there, but I would spend 30 to 45 minutes going back through the recording of the video to find 2 or 3 really good moments or quotes from my guest or from myself. And it's just taking time. And so I've now outsourced that to my content producer, Mike, and he'll go through and do that for me. And he'll come up with a script. So I'll do an interview like you and I interview. I'll do my interview, then I'll send it to him and say, hey, it's done. It's on Riverside. He'll then go script the intro and the outro. It saves me 45 minutes to an hour. It takes me 2 minutes to record that because the script's already done. And so there's things like that. And I'm paying him by the hour to do that. So I might pay $2,000 to $4,000 to him every month on content ideation, scripting, just miscellaneous things. I'll say, hey, Mike, watch a video on this that could help us improve the channel. We've got a big long list of, we call it like 24 and 24 little improvements we want to make to the podcast and channel in 24. And some of those are like, get a new mic, get a new lens for my camera. He might research a new lens. And so he's kind of like miscellaneous content producer person, and then we have editors who we pay per video to actually do the final editing and the B-roll and the cutting. And so that's, let's say out of $7,000, that's $2,000 to $4,000 to the producer, the rest of it to the editors.
Like it. All right, let's switch gears to something that I personally respect for you the most, that probably not a lot of people see, and that is you have been community focused since the first day I met you. And I do think a lot of creators are kind of orienting that way recently, but you were there long ago. So I just want to understand, maybe tell us why community was always a core to what you were building and who you are. But more importantly, what do you think makes a good community?
Well, I actually admired you for this. So I don't know. Funny, you're asking me this as well, but I think so. Maybe it's mutual, but yeah, I think part of this is being a team player. I keep using these sports metaphors, but I love team sports. I feel like individual sports are cool. Going out and running a marathon's cool, but for me, team is just amazing because it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 + 1 = 5. And then if you get a network of people and the right people in the room, it elevates everybody's play. It makes you better. So I think that's my core idea, is community equals team to me. And so I've tried to, doing it different ways. Like I've specifically built a formal community now called Rental Property Mastery, which is a paid private community. But I kind of see that as the inner circle of a broader Coach Carson community, part of which is the free YouTube community. And so I've got a couple strategies around that. One is just trying to be present. I think you do a better job of this than I do. Just be present in the comments, communicate with people, respond to people. Just be a real human being. Don't try to be like too big for your britches. Like I think that's annoying. I think it's just not my style. Like I think even at your event, like to me, it was, you made the comment of, hey, you just talk to people, interact. I'm like, that's what I do. Like I'm not any better, any worse than anybody else, but let's just have a conversation. Whether you have 100,000 YouTube subscribers or you've been doing this for 20 years or you're brand new, we all have something to learn from each other. And so just bringing that kind of just humanness to the YouTube channel is I think something you do really well. And I try to do that too. The other thing I've learned is like people want to be part of something, like part of a movement. And so I've been working really hard about making, the Small Mighty Investor was my effort to describe a movement. A movement has to have, there's actually a book, I'll think about the name of it. The idea is that to have a movement, you have to oppose something else too. You have to be against something. And so for me, it's being against 10x, go big, scale to the moon, just to scale. Like I talk about it all the time, right? And so I think when you have an idea, a core philosophy at the center of your community, then people can listen to you like, okay, I either hate that, I think that's stupid, I want to go big, I think you're stupid, Chad, or they think that's me. And so like more and more it's been like, hey, people get that. They're like, yeah, I really resonate with that idea. And so I've been working on telling stories around that. And how do you describe that, tell my own story? Why is that important to me? But it's really like a value conversation. It's talking about like what is important to me. And to me, family, travel, balancing, being really into my work with also trying to be the best person I can outside of my work. Like those, it's not easy. Like, I'm not a perfect person with that, but that's what I aspire to. Like that's my value. And then within real estate investing, it's not that I don't want to be an excellent real estate investor. I like to be but I like to be a crafts person. I don't want to like outgrow being a real estate investor. Like I still want to be in the weeds. Like I still want to manage, I still want to have properties that I know my tenants or I know my property manager. Like I don't think it's okay for me in my case to like outgrow and become the CEO of this big $1 billion business, and then you're now managing like this whole huge team. Like I think it's cool to have a small business where you stay engaged in your community and you know your customers, and I think that's the aspiration, and just to be an excellent crafts person. And so that's a value. That's something I try to figure out how to tell a story about. And so I think that the combination of just being present and then developing story and a strong sense of values around what your community is all about, that's been one of the eye openers for me, which I learned a lot from you on that too, of just, if you do that, then people can automatically start saying, yep, I want to hang out with Coach. That seems like a really good place to be.
Yeah. When I think about the small and mighty investor, it's obviously something I'm a huge proponent of. We're definitely arm in arm there, but I did not get the subtlety of being against something else. I think that story, that hook, that mission, I didn't get it, but now I do, right? We're not the 10X. We're not the go, 1,000 door, 4,000. Like you don't need that stuff. And you're right. That will piss somebody off, but that's okay, right? If that's who you are, full permission. You're not hurting my feelings at all. Go nuts. I got to tell you, I miss that. That is beautiful in simplicity.
Yeah, I think we got to. It's a little bit more of a bold stance, and I've been uncomfortable with that, honestly. Like I don't. In some cases, I can be a little too people pleaser, like, oh, I don't know, let's be something for everybody, But if you're something for everybody, that's watered down, like, and you're not gonna stand for anything. So you got to find a way to It's so drawing a dynamic, the thing you're against. And telling a story about that it helps people find out what you're for.
Awesome. Well, Coach, this has been an extremely valuable conversation for me. Hopefully, audience, you took something away from this as well. Where can people find you?
Hang out at Coach Carson. If you look on YouTube, just search for my channel there. I'd love to, if you subscribe and hang out, give me some feedback, things I can improve. I'm always trying to improve. And I communicate on my email newsletter the most every single week, every Monday. If you go to coachcarson.com/newsletter, that's a personal email from me. You can reply, let me know what's going on, and I would love to hear from you.
Awesome, buddy. I appreciate you. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Michael.